Right, so the next function that we're going to use is we're going to create an option where we can add a user to our database. So if we go back over to our main homepage, then what we have here is our simple login form. If we click on register user, we've got here these 4 fields that we are going to use to add a user to this. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go and edit our user, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is call on this function called add user. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pass in these parameters here. So we've got user, we've got one for password, we've got one for first name, and we've got here one for last name. And we need to be able to get that data in there and use that inside of our query. So with an insert statement, we always deal with parameters because we're always bringing in data into our database. But again, like we have here with the select query, we don't change how we construct this function, okay? So 3 steps. So db equals connections. Then we have a SQL query, okay, which is insert into table users, and we are going to match our column name. So the first one is fn, second one is ln, then we got a un, and then we got a password. We don't have to specify one for ID because the ID is auto incrementing, okay? So then we do values. We're just going to put that in caps. And then we pass in our parameters. So we got colon user, colon pass, and then we go colon fname, and we got colon lname. Sorry, I just need to put these ones here at the front. And the reason being is because whatever columns I specify here, the order of that must specify the values that I have over there. So this is basically my insert statement that I've got. Then I'm going to pass in my parameters. So just like the two queries before, the first query that we did, we're passing in an array with our parameters. So the first one is the fname, and the fname is that we've got $fn. Then we've got one for lname, passing in the last name, and that should be an arrow. And then we've got one for user, and the user is our u. And then we've got one for pass, which is the $p. And so this is our variables, okay? So now we're going to go and execute this query. So stmt, which is our database object where we are preparing our statement, prepare, $ like that. And then we got stmt where we execute our query. So execute like this. And we just pass in our parameters. And then we go, execute. And then once we've executed our query, we don't get any results back. So with insert, update, and delete, we don't get data back. We're just passing data always into the database, or we're changing it. But either way, we are not getting data back. What we can do to check if everything is okay is to check if how many rows are affected. So here we got statement, and we go row count. And this in most cases will be 1 because we're always playing with a single row unless we specifically want to create a function that will update multiple rows. But generally it's just going to be 1. So we got add user, count 1. So again, if statement, if count equals 1, then we can go and redirect ourselves to our host, which are our homepage. So we go host and underscore server, and then we go HTTP host. So this is basically the equivalent of saying HTTP ://localhost port 8000. So if you're using Docker Toolbox, it's HTTP ://192.168.99.100 : which stands for port, 8,000, and that's what we're getting back over here. The next one is our path. So the path is the index.php, and the header is then going to be location, and we want to pass in our host variable and then our path variable. So this brings us back to our sign-in page. And then we go session destroy, which basically means that, hey, we've logged in, but we are adding a user. So we're now going to destroy this session and type in exit. Now, one little thing is I am making this little application is going to go back to the login page once we've added in a user. But it doesn't have to be. What if we want to add multiple users, right? We can go back to this screen all the same and just clear the fields. Whatever we want to do is something that we process in here. So for this application, I'm going to go back to the login box so that I can check that my account works properly. So what we're going to check out is over here in our index page. There's our admin page over here. Our other index page is that our button over here is the register users. It's just a link to another page, to the register.php page. So our register.php page has got that register button in there. And if we have a look over here and we type in register, we have our add button over here, okay? So register user, so that's the value register, and this is the name that we need to reference to. So everything else, exactly the same. It's a post method. We got fname, lname, user, and pass as our values. And so now we can go back to process.php, and up here at the top, we've got our ssets functions, and we're just going to add that item to there. So we got else if, and post underscore like this, submit, and I'm going to type in register. And what I want to do is I pretty much want to copy this that I have over here, but I'm just going to expand that because when we click on the register user, we see that we have these 4 fields. So in addition to user and password, what I have is I've got my fname variable, I've got an lname variable, and here I've got fname and I've got lname. Okay, and I want to check also if all those fields are empty or not. So we're just going to go like this and type in fname and lname. And then we call our function add user. And in addition, if we have a look over here, we need to pass in 4 parameters, starting with user, password, and then the first name, and then the last name. So they have to be in that order because otherwise our variables are going to get confused. So over here, username, password, and we can just again copy this bit over here, comma, and paste it, change this into fname, change that into lname. And so that should be our 4 variables. So now, hopefully, if everything has gone correctly, I can create another user. So let's go and call this John, okay, Doe, and we call him John, and the password will just be John1234. Register my user, and it goes back to my login page. And so now if I type in John and go John1234 and log in, it brings me back to my page over here. Now it says undefined register here on line 17, which is line 17, which is this thing over here. And what's actually happened is I forgot the sset function. So it's still going to see that it's true, but in this case it was true, or it's still going to let it happen because this register had a value, but by putting this sset in there, it just silences that warning. But we can see here that we've got John as our third record over there. So let me just go and fill that up a bit. So over here, now we've added a user, and very similarly, we can now update a user and we can also remove a user. And we're going to do updating user in the next video.